Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny, well, actually cold, dark, and gloomy Dubai. I'm sorry, everybody, it took so long to get here, and please do share this link on the Telegram channels. I tried very, very, very hard to get all these things to work. First, I had an issue with Chrome where it apparently thought that another device was using my microphone and video, and I just couldn't get it to work. So then I tried Edge, then I tried Firefox. Finally, Firefox got something, but then for some reason, the internet connection was not able to go live. So I tried it through a VPN, and I was finally able to actually get a connection. But unfortunately, I couldn't reconnect to my live stream that I had set up before from the old channel. I just couldn't find a command for that. So I decided, all right, I'll create a new live stream. So yeah, there we go. But anyway, better late than never. And I hope everybody can hear me all right. This is a new microphone that I got for travel. See this little guy? And I think everything's just going to work fine. Okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning here in Dubai. I've had a very long day. I've been up since 6 a.m. But I did want to do an AMA because I typically do them on the weekend, but I missed it because I was traveling and working. Anyway, so just a few things in the queue. First off, there's a lot of questions about the snapshot. So what is the snapshot? When are we doing the snapshot? We did the balance check. As I predicted, there was going to be some issues, some on your end, some on our end. And I feel like we should explain what happened with those who restored their balances and got an incorrect balance. So it turns out that there was a bad implementation of the HD wallet code that Haskell implemented back in September of 2017. And that bug was fixed in March of 2018. The wallet backend team implemented the new wallet backend in accordance with BIP 39 and BIP 44 standards. So they correctly implemented everything, and they weren't aware of this legacy bug. So what happened was that if a person had a wallet beyond, I think, March of 2018, when they did the balance check with our new wallet backend, they had no problem at all. But if they had funds that were stored in addresses and created from back in that day, because of our strict implementation that we did according to the specification, it just simply wouldn't generate addresses that were outside those indexes. So while they were in the UTXO, people would actually not see that balance. So what we had to do is kind of an old school Internet Explorer 6 style hack where you incorrectly implement something in order to get it to work. So we had to reintroduce that bug, that legacy bug, just for the purposes of allowing people to rotate and restore their wallets. So we did that. And it seems like that issue has been fully resolved. Now, Yoroi was a bit more permissive and did allow people to regenerate those indexes from back in those days. That's why those who were having balance issues were able to see the correct balance with Yoroi, but the incorrect balance with the new wallet backend. But we issued a patch. If you see an incorrect balance, first check it on Yoroi. And if it's a correct balance there, then the odds are that the new Daedalus that we shipped a few days ago will correct that issue. Second, there were a few lingering inter-process communication issues between the Jormungandr node, the wallet backend, and Daedalus. We fully expected to see this on Windows. We've mostly resolved that, and we're just going to keep chipping away at it until we make sure that all of those issues are fully resolved for all users. We got a lot of support tickets as we anticipated. Some were conceptual, some were actual bugs, but we're moving real quickly, and we've been able to achieve a lot and accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. So overall, the balance check was an overwhelming success. Thank you, community, so much for participating. If you still haven't, please do. And now the question of the hour is, when are we going to do the snapshot? Tentatively, we're looking pretty good for next week. We'll announce the exact date as we get a little closer to it. Probably this Friday or Monday next week, we'll have certainty of that exact date. My hope would be an earlier part of the week, but it might end up becoming the later part of the week. The big challenge was getting everything to work well together, getting Daedalus to work with the new wallet backend, getting Jormungandr to work with all these things. And we accomplished that with the balance check snapshot. So now it's just a matter of getting enough incentives code in there and also dealing with some breaking changes because we've changed a few formats and other things last minute that we'd like to have for efficiency's sake and scalability, et cetera, et cetera. So we're real excited about that upcoming incentivized testnet snapshot. We'll announce the date in just a little bit, so probably either Friday or Monday. and we'll get that out to you guys hopefully before the end of the month. Very high probability of that. So overall, software is looking really good, and we're really happy with the velocity we have. We just added a new team member to the Jormungandr team. He started last week, and he's already making good commits and solved a few issues. And we're going to keep adding some more team members, probably 2 or 3. The Hydra team is just about to be activated as well. That's for Basho, and that's led by Rob Cohen. So he's going to be starting a prototype implementation after November 30th. And in December will be mostly conceptual. He'll likely travel to Edinburgh to talk to our guys. And then off to the horses and just play around with it. He's also going to be writing a lot of blog posts on Ouroboros, everything from how does Ouroboros work to all the flavors of Ouroboros to how does Ouroboros resolve common problems in the proof-of-stake world, like nothing at stake and long-range attacks and so forth. So look for those articles on the IOHK blog. We're real excited about seeing them, and our hope is that they're understandable. And if you guys like them, we'll keep writing them. If you don't like them, let us know what you'd like differently, and then, of course, we'll work on that. We're also just about to hold a major Cardano workshop in Colorado. That's going to be December 2nd to 4th. This is going to be the basically post-incentivized testnet workshop, and we're going to kind of consolidate everything we've learned. And also a major topic will be the Cardano 2020 roadmap. And another major topic will be potentially shipping Goguen at the same time as Shelley. And what did that entail? So we're right now going through a lot of those fine details and trying to get an understanding if that's conceptually feasible or not. But with the velocity we have and what we've seen, especially of the Rust side, we're fairly optimistic that those things aren't too far apart from each other, if not at the same time. So we're going to keep adding some team members on that side. We've already made some structural changes to the way the teams operate. And we have a much better delivery culture now. And it's great that we have over 3,000 people keeping our feet to the fire with the Stake Pool channel. And we just get a lot of great feedback and issues from you guys. So keep it up. It's really exciting. And our hope is that Basho will ship not too far from Goguen. And depending on the implementation results we get from the Hydra prototype, we'll be able to figure out where that fits into our roadmap. The last thing to do is Voltaire. And Voltaire is all about governance, governance, governance. So I'm heading to Switzerland after Dubai, and part of that trip is to talk to the Cardano Foundation about the formation of a CIP committee. For those of you who don't know, the CIP committee is basically a Cardano Improvement Proposal Committee. So what we're going to do is create the formal Cardano Improvement Proposal process. Basically, Emergo, IOHK, and the CF will work together for the first edition. And inside the first edition will be a way that people can use the CIP process to change the CIP process itself. This is the very first stage in decentralization of development for Cardano. And our hope is that Voltaire will be the first update to the system that will be completely covered end-to-end by CIPs as instead of our product management, process management, project management philosophy, so that we can actually get open source contributions. So look for that. We'll make some announcements, and the foundation will make some announcements. And if you guys have some advice to participate, we'd probably create some sort of hook for the community to review the latest thoughts on how CIP should be done. So there's a natural question of why do you care? Well, we will have a built-in voting system for Cardano, and this voting system will be used for both the Treasury and for a discussion around which updates the protocol should encumber. So the standard language, when we reference these things, will be a CIP. So basically, the simplest way of doing it would be simply drafting a CIP, storing it somewhere in a deterministic way, hashing that, and then people would vote on those hashes of which ones they want to approve or not. And then you can have a notion of ratification. So we're not going to make any announcements on Voltaire until probably Q2 of 2020, but it will be released before the end of 2020, because the very first thing we're going to use this process for, in the Treasury process for, is a funding contract for IOHK to continue its work on Cardano post-2020. And I think that's a great dry run of the system. And we can have a great discussion and debate about that. But overall, things are moving along really well. We're really happy about the wallet backend. We're really happy about Daedalus. We're really happy about the code quality. We're happy about how quickly we've been able to move this month and how much we've learned from moving this fast this month. And we're really in a good stride. And so next year is going to see a lot of releases, and it's going to be easy for us to get these releases out. And we'll just continue getting more feature rich. We're also looking into some state-of-the-art technology that weren't necessarily in our roadmap. For example, recursive snarks. We're really curious about Halo and what that brings to the table. So we have a whole team of people that are right now dissecting that, looking into it. We think that that's going to be a great way to give us kind of the ultimate like client solution. We're also very interested about thinking around the transaction. As we've mentioned before, Cardano is kind of a financial operating system for those who don't have one. And so you really think about FOSses in terms of transactions. And you say transactions have 5 properties. They have the assets, the actors involved, you have the metadata, so it's the story of the transaction, you have the regulatory side, and finally you have the contractual component of it. Well, you need to have great technologies in all of those categories. So things like DIDs can help you with identity. Things like smart contracts can help you with the transactional side. Creating a multi-currency ledger allows you to express arbitrary assets. Using hashes for metadata embedding is a really good place to do that. Finally, the regulatory side, usually that involves getting a sense of how do you actually do things like contingent settlement. For example, you have to prove these certain things for the transaction to settle, like that you follow KYC or AML. So building these capabilities into Cardano is a high priority for 2020, and doing this in a way that does not require complex coding, but rather using templates and so forth. So we're very excited about being one of the first cryptocurrencies, if not the first, to kind of bring a holistic solution end to end for all 5 categories, so that basically you can use the system seamlessly and be in full compliance with whatever your local regulations happen to be, or use the system in kind of more of a legacy mode and basically use Bitcoin-like transactions, which don't have these types of things, but maximally preserve privacy and autonomy. And in the system, we'll be able to have both sides of this. So a lot of stuff is coming in 2020. And, we had to learn over the last few years how to be a good software company. And part of that was a lot of experimentation. And part of that was trying out different project management methodologies. Part of that was learning how to be good at product management. Part of that was having to learn how to follow proper development processes, especially given that research and formal methods tend to lead to a waterfall style process. So what we had to do is find a way of how do we be agile despite the fact that we're kind of trapped in somewhat of a waterfall process given the dependencies upon research. But over the last 2 years and last 6 months in particular, I believe we've really learned a lot, and I'm extremely excited and proud of the work that's been done. And it's really cool to see that some of our research threads are coming to an end after Hydra or Boris is basically done for the purposes of Cardano 2020. And then it's just a question of, where do we want to go from there? Other things are on the list, like, for example, Ethereum interoperability. That's really not hard to do, and it's going to be a big discussion in the December summit that we do. It could be as simple as full implementation of the chimeric ledger standard and also embedding the EVM and allowing extended UTXO contracts to call EVM accounts and back. That's not super hard to do, and it can be done in parallel. And if that happened, it would likely ship during the Basho era, not during the beginnings of the Goguen era, because we'd like for Plutus and Marlowe to really get some permanence and push out. But those things aren't too far apart. We could have more elegant solutions, and there's potentially even ways to compile things like Solidity, for example, to Plutus Core if we really wanted to push it that way. But they have different accounting models, so that's a non-trivial pursuit. So anyway, Ethereum support will come as well, and we'll make an announcement of exactly how we want to do that. We think that we can bring something very compelling to the space and the environment, but we'd also really like to preserve what we've done with the extended UTXO model. And we'd also really like to preserve what we've done with Plutus and Marlowe, because we think these things are revolutionary and very exciting and very sexy. And we have a lot of launch partners that are really excited to use Plutus, and we're working with them so that when we launch Goguen, they can launch their products on top of Cardano. So it's not like we're just going to build it and then wait for people to come. There's already a lot of people who want to come and are here, and they're really excited. So anyway, that's the status update. Overall, things are looking pretty good, and it's pretty exciting. Dubai is wonderful as always. It's a very wealthy city, and everybody's always doing something here, and there's a lot of money here. So it's good to come and good to talk to people. Fast is going well. Cheated a little bit because unfortunately it's extremely rude in this place not to eat while you're at a business meeting with someone. So, you try to work around that, but I'm really trying to stick to that 6 days. So if I can't get it done here, I might fast in Switzerland, unfortunately. And I love the food there. So that would be a terrible, terrible thing. Okay. All right. Let's get to your questions. And I imagine there's probably tons and tons and tons of wonderful comments and a lot of junk, because there's always junk. Here's an example of just what's amazing in this space from Napa BTC. Cardano staking will only give 2.5% per year. That's the lowest percentage of all staking coins. Will Cardano ever increase percentage, or is it stuck at 2.5% per year? So I have a question to you. Who told you that number? We haven't made any public announcement of the staking percentage. You'll see something when the snapshot happens and people start earning rewards. We have to fix it then. But where did you get that number from? So this brings up a broader topic of information and how information propagates throughout the cryptocurrency space. For some reason, people just seem to believe what they read, and they don't use common sense, and they don't ask, where did this information come from? Who's releasing it? What incentives do they have? If you don't see it from our Twitter accounts, the foundation's accounts, or Emerco's accounts, it's probably not true. I try to be as accessible as possible. I've done dozens of AMAs. We tweet all the time. We blog all the time. There's ample opportunity for you to actually see official releases from IOHK and from the foundation and from Emergo. Yet somehow this information continues to propagate. So be extremely skeptical when you see things like this and you haven't heard them from us. It's probably a lie. It's probably hearsay, or it's probably just made up stuff that people are pushing and peddling for whatever agenda that they want to have. Hey, Charles, any update on the African students that graduated from the Haskell course? So there were 23 of them. We made job offers to all 23. What was truly amazing was that even though our offers were exceedingly competitive for Ethiopia, in some cases 2 or 3 times what the average rates were, a lot of them ended up actually taking other offers which paid more money, which was really extraordinary. We spent a lot of time training them, and they decided to go off and take other vocations, and that's okay. That's really the magic of education. The point of it is to lift people up and give them opportunities and potentials that they've never really dreamed that they would have before. And considering I believe all of the girls have jobs either with us or with other people, overall, we consider that to be a very successful class. The cost of running it wasn't significant for us, but it really did pay a lot of dividends with our ability to understand the jurisdiction and get to know the people, and just also get to know the culture really well. So I think we have 5 or 10, I can't remember the exact number, I'll have to talk to HR, that ended up taking offers with us and working with us, and they're working on various teams throughout the company, either QA or InfoSec or et cetera, doing interesting things. The next cohort that we do will probably be more focused on Plutus than Haskell, and our hope is to actually really push dApp development. So that's going to be a 2020 pursuit. And there's a very strong possibility that that cohort will be trained in Mongolia. So I believe we're still speccing out that class, but that's coming soon. That said, it was a privilege of a lifetime running that class in Ethiopia, and we really did enjoy it. It was incredibly challenging. Logistically, there was so much that had to be done, and it was very taxing on both Lars and Polina to physically live there and deal with the things you just have to deal with when you live in a large African city. But overall, it was a resounding success, and we're extremely proud and happy of those girls and the hard work that they did, and the fact that they're continuing their careers. And it wasn't just a fun little thing to do, it was transformative for them as well. Well, we have instant settlement like Algorand. So that's basically finality after one block. You get that with BFT protocols. There are trade-offs for these things. And so the answer is we could have that feature, and it's something we're looking into as a parallel settlement system. So basically the idea is you'd pay a different type of transaction fee, and instead of having it go through standard Ouroboros, it would go through Ouroboros BFT, and we would select the stake pools as the BFT quorum for that settlement. Now, the advantage there is you'd get fast finality. The disadvantage is you would have a lower Byzantine resistance threshold. So we could certainly introduce a parallel system, and we do have an idea of how to do that with the parallel chains design. That's going to be some 2020 post-Hydra research that we do. And it's something that I think would be very promising for side chains because it would ensure fast settlement between the side chains. Hi, Charles. Is there a clear strategy to capture value into ADA itself, or will it just serve as a backbone for the protocol? So ADA is the control token of the system. You need it to do computation. You'll need it to control the system. You'll need it to secure the system. So the more users of the system, the more value ADA will naturally capture. So really, if your goal is ADA appreciation, your goal is use of the system. So how do you do that? Well, you do that through getting dApps on the system. You do that through getting payments on the system. You do that through user acquisition. And part of that strategy comes from Emergo, and part of that strategy comes from the Cardano Foundation, and actually through IOHK, because a lot of the cases of our commercial activity usually involves hybrid architectures, where we do something on Cardano and then something with Atala or a different product. So we're all trying to bring users where and when we can, and we're just really excited about getting Goguen out. It's a process, and it's long overdue, and I'm as deeply frustrated as you guys are that we just haven't quite gotten there yet. But that's just the nature of research, and that's just the nature of innovation. You have to wait. Have I bumped into Tone Vase? Yes, I was actually with Tone Vase yesterday, and Tone is doing quite well. And Tone and I had a great conversation, and I might actually come on to his show this week. So we'll see. Is there a connection between the EU Horizons 2020 program and Cardano? IOHK is a grant recipient of EU Horizons 2020 for decentralized software update. And so the research we do there will inevitably work its way into Cardano one way or another. IOHK Summit 2020. We're still thinking about whether to have a summit for 2020 or not. It was an experiment when we did it here in 2019. It was an enormous amount of work. We had about 1,000 people attend, which was nice. I was really sad that we didn't have more people. And we have such a large, vigilant community. And it's just a shame that we couldn't get more out there. I think having it in the United States was a kind of, in hindsight, not the best location. We have a very strong European and Asian community, and a lot of people from countries where it was difficult for them to get visas or too time consuming for them to get visas into the United States, especially from Eastern European countries. And had we had it somewhere else, we probably would have seen 2 or 3 times as many people. So we certainly did cite a lot of locations. One, it was Kyoto. Another was in Batumi, Georgia. So we looked all around, and we may announce the summit or may not. But my primary focus right now is getting Cardano out and other products out, and then we'll reassess it as we get into the summertime. Are you happy with the amount of testnet nodes? Yeah, it's exactly what we expected. We are still collecting some statistics on participation, and we'll announce those at a later date. But overall, I'm pretty happy with what we've seen so far. What's to stop people from loading up their wallets with ADA for the testnet before the snapshot and then selling it after the snapshot so they can stake ADA without actually owning any? Well, nothing. And that's the point. The point is that they get something and they get to use it and they're making money from it. The point of the incentivized testnet is for people to use the incentivized testnet. So you have to make a compromise somewhere. It's simply just too much work to do a one-for-one mirroring. So in the interest of time, in the interest of participation, it makes sense to just do a snapshot. And so they'll, of course, use that. Now, we may make some sort of bonus, for example, if right at the time where we bring funds back, if they don't have those accounts matching, maybe they get a penalty or something. But we haven't thought too much about that. But overall, it is what it is. And the point here is for people to actually use the thing, register stake pools, to delegate and to take it seriously. So if you pay them, they take it seriously. And these systems are really good at paying people. So it makes a lot of sense to do it the way we're doing it. And we're going to learn a lot from this process. Is Cardano going to be a member of the W3C? I have on numerous occasions wanted to join the W3C at IOHK, and I'd love for the foundation to do that. It's a situation where we just haven't had the personnel to actually attend the committee meetings. But there are two particular committees that I'm quite interested in: the Web Payments Committee and also the Interledger Committee. So we'll definitely be part of that, and we'll definitely do something there. Any update on the lab around dedicated hardware? Yes, it's likely going to be at University of Wyoming. We're still in negotiations with them, and we'll make an announcement at a later date. It's mostly about matching funds. How's your physical and mental health? Are you burning out? I've never felt better. Life is good. Lost a lot of weight, working out every day, getting up at 5 a.m. A little hard to do it on the road, but we're getting there. We're getting there, getting it done. Hi, Charles. As in Daedalus and Yoroi, we only have phrase words and not private key. There's been a lot of discussion about a wallet export format, and one of the things we could do in a wallet.dat is include the private key information along with a lot of metadata and logs and so forth. And so there's a lot of value in certain cases, but considering that you can regenerate everything with the keywords, you never quite lose that. So the question is there a situation where you'd want one particular private key over just being able to regenerate an HD wallet? It's an interesting quandary. For paper wallets or other things that may not necessarily be HD based, that might work better. But overall, it's something we'll get around to because every wallet needs an export format, and we'll pull it in. How will we interact with a CIP, not SIP, CIP, Cardano Improvement Proposal? Likely it'll be through the news feed in the Cardano wallet. What we'll probably do is actually have CIPs submitted via transaction onto the Cardano blockchain, but we'll make an announcement at a later date on how to do that. Will IWHK also work with ANSI, who are working with ISO on interoperability standards. We're a consumer of interoperability standards. So what we do is we innovate, and we create good cryptography and good technology, and we become an advocate that get propagated. But at the end of the day, I mean, standards are standards, and whether we create them or someone else creates them, basically you just pick the market leader and you integrate that. There's a lot of people who disagree with the design of Bluetooth, and a lot of people disagree with the design of Wi-Fi. But tough tomatoes. You're really not going to achieve anything. You just have to pick the standard as it is and hope that the next version of the standard is a little bit better than the old one. Charles, how do you maintain your sanity and focus during this admittedly long crypto winter where so many projects are closing up shop daily? I've been in this game for a long time. In 2011, there were days where we would see 50% of the hash rate go down, and the price of Bitcoin went way down and way up. And when I say way down and way up, like $1 to $30 down to $4 and some change. So it was really tough being in Bitcoin in the early days. But we didn't really think too much about the price. It was more about philosophy, and in many ways, it was a lot more fun. Everybody was kind of a small, close-knit community. We had very small conferences. The media didn't pay much attention to us. Then in 2017, everything kind of changed with ICO mania, and we got these huge market caps, and everybody got rich, and all these scam projects got funded, and some projects were just not viable. We got these huge market caps, and everybody got rich, and all these scam projects got funded, and some projects were just not viable, and it was clear that they weren't viable, but they were still worth $1 billion. And it became less about the culture and the philosophy and building things, and it just became about making money. So it also attracted a lot of get-rich-quick people who had blatantly unrealistic expectations about how long it takes to build things and how hard it is to build things. I keep reminding people that the software we create in this industry is among the most complex software that you can write. It involves distributed systems, involves cryptography, it involves things that are decentralized, meaning that you can't just have a kill switch or a fallback where one party can come in and resurrect things if it falls apart. And it involves Byzantine resistance, meaning that you also have to engineer these systems with the assumption that some of the nodes are malicious. So when you start tallying up all those design requirements, it turns out that the traditional suite of protocols from the 1980s and 90s are woefully inadequate. And so you have to not only figure out how to solve these problems, you have to do it with living systems that are self-evolving. And in some cases, you just don't have full control over. And in many cases, you can't even fix well-known bugs. For example, there's a very famous multi-sig bug in Bitcoin with the old Bitcoin script. Still has not been fixed. And so there's a lot of little stuff like that these warts that come up. So it's a bit frustrating when you're in crypto winter because there's all this progress being made. Today, Bitcoin is fundamentally stronger as a product, as a culture, as an ecosystem than when it was at the height of Bitcoin mania in 2017 when it was $20,000. But if all you look at is the price, you'd say, oh, it's a bear market and therefore it's somehow weaker. And unfortunately, that's the key metric that many people in our space seem to judge us by. Not by the scientific progress we've made, not by the progress we've made with code, by adoption, by ease of use. We've gotten to a point today where many countries you can find ways to pay your taxes with cryptocurrencies, where there's legal recognition of private keys and other such things. And governments are taking cryptocurrencies very seriously, and in many cases in a very positive light. And this simply just was not the case just a few years ago. So while we are in a crypto winter from a price perspective, the innovation didn't stop and people didn't stop. The space is much stronger in that respect. And I have much stronger competitors today than I had in 2017, which is quite refreshing because we can learn from them as well. So how many patents does AdaTech hold? None. We chose never to file for a patent. People who file for patents are not cryptocurrency people. They're bad people. And I'm sorry, any cryptocurrency that's patented will never be successful. You've lost the entire point. It's to decentralize. It's to get rid of central control. It's to say that no one's in charge. But then at the same time, you're going to say, well, but Bob over there owns all the IP and at any time can pull the rug out from underneath you. It's just insanity. We've already been through this experiment once before. There's plenty of patented cryptography from the 90s and 2000s. No one uses it. They use the open source stuff. Hey, Charles, any idea how to better handle issues where the owner of funds dies? That's another really good question. So estate planning is an interesting thing. Generally speaking, assets belong to custodians, not us. And when we die, well, if it's in cash, you can find it and distribute it. And if it's sitting with a custodian, you can always order the custodian to reallocate it to someone else. So there is a confusion amongst people saying, well, oh, hang on a second here. Cryptocurrencies, you can't hack the system and steal funds from somebody when it's convenient. So therefore, you can't do inheritance planning. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You see, it just requires you to use the protocols differently. So if grandma wants an inheritance plan, she's going to have to send her crypto to a managed account. And the reality is there's plenty of entrepreneurs who have built these facilities and basically act in that role for grandma and grandpa, or for people who are planning their estate out. So the point is that instead of this being done for you, you're in charge of yourself. And so that means at least one person will make a mistake, at least one person will die unexpectedly, at least one person won't do the right thing. But that's a small price to pay for the alternative, which is you never have control. In the current system, at any time, the U.S. government or any other government, the one you're under jurisdiction over, can just simply lock you out of your money. So let's say you're innocent, you're accused of a crime. The very first thing they usually try to do is prevent you from spending your own money so you can't use it to defend yourself. That's unethical, it's immoral, and yet this is the reality of the modern banking system, that your money can be a tool to be used against you. So it's a very powerful feature to say that you're in total control, and then it's a decision you make about what that control means. Now, what we entrepreneurs can do is make the case that sometimes it's okay turning over control to someone else, whether it be a smart contract, a hardware device, or a business, because perhaps that can make it a lot easier to spend your money or protect you from hackers or help with estate planning. The point is that's a decision you make and you consent to, and no one forced upon you. You voluntarily entered into that. And the protocol cannot be used against you, as it can be right now with the banks and the legacy financial system. That's the big differentiator. And unfortunately, that does mean sometimes people are just going to screw up. And that's just a fact of life. I love this. X Factor. Have fun drinking the Kool-Aid. Been listening to this shit for 3 years. 4 cents. Okay, son. Good for you. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. It's not about the price, people. It's about changing the world. If we do that, everything will be fine. Is there a burn lockup of ADA ever in the cards, or did Stellar make a big mistake losing its credibility? First off, there is no large supply of ADA just sitting in the middle of nowhere waiting to be burned. Okay, we didn't launch like Stellar or Ripple, where we said we'll just take a huge chunk of the supply and just leave it in some vault and decide what to do with it. All ADA in circulation has been distributed. There is no ADA to burn without stealing it from somebody and destroying it. That's a fact. I've heard this now for 2 years. People keep asking, burn, burn, burn. First off, what value did it create for Stellar? There was a short-term price appreciation that the markets took back, and they've lost permanently all that value that could have been spent for protocol development, for community development. It's basically saying, I can't figure out what to do with this big pile of money, so I'm just going to set it on fire to make money more scarce, to give a small gift to everybody. It's insanity. Burns never work. They're market manipulation on the short term for speculators at the expense of the future of the protocol. And in our case, it would require us to steal ADA from people because there's no giant pile of ADA that's unallocated. It's just weird that you people keep asking this question. For 2 years, the answer has been the same. Would you expect the answer to change? Go find me the pile of ADA, unallocated ADA that belongs to nobody. Find it for me. Get back to me. Charles, it's about the price. We're dying over here. $1 at the height to 5 cents. Yeah, it's for everybody else. Vast majority of altcoins got hit by a 90% depreciation. Guys, I could cure cancer. It's not going to move the price very much. Okay? It's what happens when you have a bubble. Yeah, I'd argue what we have today is much closer to a fair market value than what was there in 2017. And I mentioned this on Bloomberg when I said that ICO mania was a ticking time bomb and that these markets and prices are not sustainable. You see, it's just like in the 90s with the dot-com boom and bust. It took Amazon 11 years to recover to its all-time high. Now, it was a fundamentally different company 11 years later, significantly stronger and better company, and now Jeff Bezos is the world's richest man. If things are real, it takes time, and it takes a lot of effort, but they last. They stick around. The culture's right. The community's right. It's useful. People can do things with it. It's not my job to make you guys money. It's my job to write great protocols that will be around 5 decades from now. It's your job to make yourself money, and you will never make it through speculation. Very few people ever have been successful at that. And usually they are successful at that with other people's money. Furthermore, you have to ask yourself, if you get it to $1, who is the counterparty buying it from you? And what reason do they have to buy it from you? There's a story I like telling. I'm going to tell it again because it just never seems to get through to you traders, but perhaps now you'll finally get it. So it's an old story I heard from a Jewish friend of mine, and it goes something like this. So there's this guy walking down the streets of New York, and he sees a truck come by. Truck hits a bump, and a bunch of sardine cans fall out of the back of the truck. So he walks over and picks up the sardine cans, and the truck's too far gone, so he decides to keep them. So he takes them, puts them in his garage, and forgets about it. A few months later, he's watching the news, and they mention on the news there's a sardine shortage. And he said, that's weird. So he figures, well, if there's a shortage, those cans I got in my garage are probably worth a lot of money. So he starts making some calls, and he sells his sardines to all of his friends, and those cans start floating around New York, and eventually they get up to $1,000 a can. So this hedge fund trader, real rich, buys those sardines, and he's just about to try to wheel and deal and sell them for twice as much as what he paid. But he said, you know what? I'm a rich guy. I love sardines. I'm just going to eat them. Why not? It's a luxury. People eat caviar. So he opens up his can, takes a bite out of the sardine, and spits it out. It's the nastiest, most rotten sardine he's ever had in his life. And he calls up the guy he bought it from and says, you son of a bitch, you sold me rotten sardines. I want my money back. And the guy says to him, oh, no, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong. Those aren't eating sardines. Those are trading sardines. And that's where we were in 2017. None of those coins, none of those tokens, none of those valuations were eating sardines. They were trading sardines. Rotten fish in the cans. You see, if somebody's buying it from you, they're either buying it because they're stupid or it's useful to them. They're stupid if they think they're going to make a fortune. It's useful if they can do something with it. So the key to long-term success is the same key for any business, any protocol, anything. Build value. And you do that by building community, by building utility, and by making the protocols useful and getting them deployed. You see, that's the key. And 10 years from now, we'll be here. And the vast majority of these other guys won't be because they didn't focus on that. But if your only parameter is making money, leave. You're going to lose all your money. Free advice for you there. The vast majority of the time, that's what happens. There were people in 2017 when Bitcoin went from $250 to $20,000 who lost all their money. Just think about that. Really, really internalize it. I'm here to change the world. We're here to build things, and we're here to make the world a better place. And these protocols honestly can do that. They put you in charge of your money, your retirement, your property rights. They allow us to explore new ways to vote, new ways to run businesses. They allow us to explore new ways to express our intent contractually. They enable global business that wasn't possible before. They solve the remittance problem. They solve the microfinance problem. They allow completely new types of financial products to be constructed. They allow us to start doing things like the mini IPO and actually bring financial markets to places that have tons of value, but it's locked up and it's inaccessible and it's illiquid. They allow us to conduct completely new monetary experiments. They allow us to explore new ways to do stable coins. All of these things are things that are unique to our industry, and our industry will give to every single person in the world in an open, democratic way that China or the US government and others don't control. You do. That's worth a hell of a lot more than a Lamborghini in the driveway, and it's worth a hell of a lot more than something going up 5 cents or 10 cents. I don't have the time of day if that's your only priority. Just go off and somewhere else and go to an ecosystem that caters to you and lose all your money, because there's always going to be someone smarter than you who's a trader, because they specialize in this and they have unfair advantages and resources you simply don't have. Invest with fundamentals and invest with philosophy. Buy the things that you believe in. Participate in the things that you believe in. That's the key to success in life. Because you know what? Then it doesn't matter what the price is. It doesn't matter what happens. If we win, everybody wins. And if the technology wins, your children win. That's far more meaningful. CM, Charles, what keeps you up at night, honestly? Not much these days. It used to be, could we build the software? Could we get it out on time? Could we overcome a lot of these damn challenges that keep coming up? There's nothing more frustrating than having the science right and understanding what needs to be done, but just for some reason, the team can't do it. They just can't get that velocity, and they can't get that gel, and the culture's not right, and the dynamics aren't right. And, you change management, you change processes, you change systems, and nothing seems to work. And it just keeps sluggishly pushing along. There's also nothing more horrifying than being afflicted with what I like to call software herpes. And that's where we were with the old code. So, the old code, no matter what we did, we just could never make that work well. We kept refactoring it, we kept patching things, and we came to the conclusion that all of it had to be replaced. And so that meant that all of it had to be replaced. And so that meant bitterly that we had to spend months and months and months and months writing new software from nothing. That set us behind, and it was really frustrating. Software from nothing. That set us behind, and it was really frustrating and really time-consuming, and it just made me sad. And for example, this recent balance check issue is just another example of software herpes flaring up again, where a bug from the past 2 years ago we still have to contend with. We want to do things right, but somehow we have to fix something from the past. So that was the kind of stuff that kept me up at night. But now that it's over, and we're no longer using that code base, and we're moving into greener pastures, it's more of a situation of tell the world what you're going to do and just see who goes along with you, and hope that everything works out. But I'm committed. We're committed as a company, and there's nothing in the world I'd rather do than this. Mining hardware. Charles sold his coins at the top. That's a lie. You can publicly verify that we didn't. Go to our Explorer. It's right there. Another one of these fudsters. And then we just right there got compared to OneCoin. Yeah, good for you too. You people. HM, if you want to know the story about the old code base, go through the old AMAs. You can see the horror over a long period of time as we were trying to clean things up. We just didn't have the right strategy in the beginning, and that's ultimately my fault as the CEO. You own these things. You think in the beginning that this is the way to do it, way X, and it turns out it's way Y, and you just have to adapt and change. And the better organization you have around you, the faster you can recover from a mistake. How are your 5 Lambos going, Charles? I don't have 5 Lamborghinis. 5 cars. Mostly Cadillacs and a GMC truck. How's the ranch? The ranch is doing quite nice. It's cold outside. Getting a new fence built. How is Goguen progressing? Quite well. And Duncan is not Irish. He's Scottish English and American. When dance on stage with Vitalik? Never. Not even if they paid me.